Welcome to A Real Authority. Today I'm talking about the Odyssey, and yeah, I clearly got this popcorn bucket. Like, I couldn't refuse. I'm a fan of film, and even though I haven't had like a big camera like this, and this is not an actual camera like this thing, like the only thing you could see out of this is that, but it's pretty cool that I could see it at all. Don't have that many popcorn buckets. The only other two I have were gifted, like a Minecraft movie as well as Scream 7, both mediocre movies. But given this is my most anticipated film of the year and Christopher Nolan movies usually hit, I haven't seen every one of his movies, but I have become such a massive fan. That'd be crazy to not say it's the most anticipated film of the year. I mean, I know that there are a lot of other movies in which I am excited for, no doubt. Like Doomsday is still happening. I don't know why. But yeah, I knew I had to get this. It looks good. It is good. I guess product review 10 out of 10 because I'm biased. So I'm going to leave it there because I want to have this on my lap, which is basically my soundboard. But yeah, and I should mention that back in school, I actually did read the Odyssey, or a much shorter version of it, because I know that the Odyssey is basically this grand tale that has become iconic. I don't think my words can do Homer's poem justice as I read it in school. Ever since I saw the trailer before Jurassic World Rebirth, my expectations were high from the get go, and no amount of controversy that this film seemingly generated out of nowhere could lessen. So I guess getting into it. Really hard to narrow down the premise of the Odyssey because there are like three separate things going on in this movie. Because it's a Nolan movie, you obviously know that it's going to try a non chronological approach. But I guess simply the Odyssey stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, this warrior who's also the king of Ithaca. He's basically found himself and his men kind of lost. They had to do something in order to win a war. Basically, the fall of Troy was caused by them. And this is basically the aftermath of that, as they basically try to voyage home while encountering seemingly impossible as well as fantasy like obstacles that not only challenges Odysseus physically, but also emotionally and memory wise. Simple premise, starting off with the acting, great around the board. Like, it feels like every single movie star wants to be in a Christopher Nolan movie. Like, Indy Navarrete wants to be in a Christopher Nolan movie. One of the characters looked like Brad Pitt. I bet you he wants to be in a Nolan movie if he hasn't been already. Regardless, the cast is huge, but I really do feel all give A-game performances. Matt Damon as Odysseus was basically the emotional anchor of the story. Well, not entirely the emotional anchor, because there are other characters related to Odysseus' story that really do provide that emotion. But Odysseus is the main character without a doubt, and you absolutely feel for him. Like, even though the movie doesn't exactly, well, I guess get right into it because it tries to build up the circumstances instead of just giving you it in chronological order, because this is a Nolan film, damn it. But as the movie goes on, you do wind up getting attached to Odysseus. I guess the main fear I had when it came to an adaptation of this story was how, from my perspective, at the very least, kind of weird how the narrative kind of progressed along, but I felt like Nolan could absolutely make it work. But since I haven't gotten to the writing and directing yet, I have to mention Matt Damon as absolutely stellar in this role, and I do feel he just gives his A game. I mean, all the cast members give their A game. Tom Holland as Telemachus was great as this secondary character to Odysseus. And you absolutely do feel for him as he's trying to figure out what's right in the absence of a father he kind of never knew. And that semi coming of age journey is strengthened by Holland's stellar performance. Like, I heard from himself, I believe, that this is his last like coming of age role because he knows that he's not a kid anymore. He can't exactly play kids till the end of time. But for this particular performance, he was stellar. Anne Hathaway as Penelope was also great, even though she doesn't have as much screen time as Odysseus or Telemachus. Hathaway is a great actress, and during the emotional moments, she just makes her character devastating, especially with her reeling with the absence of Odysseus and being pressured into remarrying. Also, Robert Pattinson. Antinius is a pretty entertaining bad guy, as well as one that basically shadows the main narrative of the movie, giving you that sense of fear and dread into what is essentially a dweeb, but in such a way where he exudes dominance and power, and Pattinson absolutely delivers in that regard. Christopher Nolan, on average, has pretty strong writing and directing, and ever since he won the Screenplay Oscar as well as Best Picture and Best Director, all the Oscars, Nolan had big shoes to fill in the shadow of one of the best movies of the decade so far. And I do feel he delivers, like in terms of the grandiose scope of this, as well as like the non chronological take on Odyssey. I'm going to be honest, with my issues with the actual narrative, I was kind of fearing that as talented as Nolan is, it wouldn't exactly blend well, but I am happy to say no. That was a marginal fear that didn't need to be, because Nolan absolutely killed it. Like, in terms of the character development as well as the epicness of the overall narrative, like, I do feel we rarely get epic movies like this, and as Nolan's most expensive movie, You obviously got to pay attention to that sort of stuff, and I feel like Nolan still got it. Also, making Odysseus a much more human character than you would imagine. Like, this movie really does try to include a lot of the elements from the original story, but I did notice, from what I can recall, some things that are not exactly faithful or just overlooked for the sake of consistency, and I do feel what they did was very smart. Like, all the changes from the original story actually worked for this feature-length adaptation. And the rest of the crew add to a technical masterpiece. Like, the cinematography is obviously beautiful. Since this was shot on film, it obviously looks better. But Hoyt van Hoten's cinematography just looks beautiful and increases the scope, like the grandioseness of the narrative. It also makes a lot of the practical effects look better, and also, since it's shot on film, the VFX look much more organically blended into the environment. The fact that they shot it on location in numerous locations and the cinematography remains great and consistent throughout, that cannot be understated, and Hoyt is definitely guaranteed herself a nomination for Best Cinematography. It just has to be, right? Production designs and costume designs, pretty cool. Like, maybe they're not the most accurate thing. Also, I'm a Greek, but I don't exactly have a fresh in mind reference to what it actually looked like, but it's cool. And I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name, Rolf de Jong and Ellen Mirojenik. Don't have a script, but bullet points on these guys, they guide me. Both were beautiful without taking you out of the experience and narrative. On top of that, at 2 hours and 52 minutes, like, it never really feels like it drags. Like, I know that 3-hour movies, they have the highest chance of encountering pacing issues, and while you could argue that, like, a few moments do feel like they drag, I would say they're so brief that they do not ruin the experience at all. The pacing was really solid. On top of the IMAX, like, Christopher Nolan has basically become the IMAX guy. Even though this is like his first film shot entirely with IMAX film cameras, I know that previous experiences basically were perfect in IMAX. Don't tell anybody, but this is my first Nolan movie that I'm seeing in theaters, sorry. And it just feels more suspenseful and big in IMAX. Like, whenever Odysseus and his crew encounter peril, you feel it. Whenever the movie ramps up the suspense, you feel it. It's a big movie, and seeing it in IMAX or IMAX 70mm, I saw it in normal 191 IMAX. Regardless, IMAX is basically a no-brainer. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ludwig Göransson's score. I was probably saving it for last because obviously I didn't want to forget the other elements that make this movie pretty remarkable. But Göransson has pretty much proven himself to be a music god. Like, his reputation has seemingly, like, risen in the past few years thanks to movies like Oppenheimer and Sinners. And even when the movie's not exactly great, Mandalorian and Grogu, for example, the score always hits. So it was a no-brainer that the score would absolutely shine through a lot of the things. Like, it wouldn't overshadow the movie, but you need the score to work in order to sell all the things that this movie is trying to be. And yeah, it's a great score. You almost want to see a movie just because he's involved at this point, because the music in this is so unique and so fitting that's basically hard to put into words. And to a point, that's something you could say about the entire experience, even though I said a lot. But yeah, if you expected Christopher Nolan to absolutely hit it out of the park, you're not wrong, because this is one of the best movies of the year, if not the best. And Nolan has basically solidified himself as a director where, in a world where some directors kind of direct disappointing movies as follow-ups to one of their best films ever, like Oppenheimer, definitely put a lot of pressure on Nolan. I could safely say that Nolan made movie magic again, and yeah. But what else were you expecting? I mean, if you weren't a Nolan fan, it would be hard not to like this movie. This movie is basically a love letter to the Odyssey story, while also turning it into a grandiose epic that Nolan and many other people have not seen before. Nolan didn't feel ready to direct Troy 20 years ago, and this is definitely better than Troy, and this is Nolan in his peak zone. Nothing else to say outside of, obviously go to IMAX, and the real authority approves. 10 out of 10. One other thing before the outro, I know this is not related to the movie, but the air quality sucked today. The wildfires in Canada basically made it so that you can't go anywhere without breathing fire. So I wanted to say stay safe while we're in these trying times, and hopefully it goes away soon. This isn't even the first time we've had something like this. But I hope everyone's okay, and I wish you all safety. Thank you. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, comment your thoughts on the movie, and definitely let me know what your ranking of the Nolan films would be. Or if you want, let me know if the changes to the Odyssey story did work. It did for me, but maybe there are some elements stronger in the book than the actual movie. I don't know. Let me know. All right, peace.